Hi, good afternoon to those of you tuning in North America, the U.S. and Canada, and also I'd like to say good morning to those of you in Seoul. I know there's a couple of my friends tuning in from Seoul, South Korea. So thanks for taking the time to join me today. I'm going to talk about adversity and I'm going to share many of the tips that I have used over the years that can actually take adversity and turn it into an advantage or an opportunity. So that's basically what the subject is today. And let's kind of get into it. So, adversity, what is it? It can be a number of things. Define it how you want. Difficulty, misfortune. It can be incredibly stressful. However, you can take that stress and convert it into energy. And I'm going to talk about how in just a moment. If you ignore adversity, it will behave like weeds do in a garden. It might starve what you're attempting to grow and eventually harvest and starve it of food and water. So it's something that you have to deal with. We all have to deal with it. Adversity is something that's part of living. And what I found is that when I see adversity coming my way, or I'm in the middle of it, okay, I remind myself to do a few things to convert it into an opportunity where most people might view it as something that is a challenge, is something negative. I actually view it as something that can give me energy to give me an advantage in achieving the goals that I've set forth for myself. I really believe that in life or business, as we go through the peaks and valleys, the good and the bad, oftentimes what happens is that people are able to, take the good times. Everybody does well, but in the valleys is really where you can either be depressed about the situation, or you can actually use it as an opportunity to grow. Okay. And one of the reasons why, in addition to a couple of requests that I had, that I'm talking about adversity today, is that mental health is a big issue worldwide. Okay. There's all sorts of reasons for it. Not going to get into that today. We can talk about that at another point in time. But basically, mental health is something that is just as important as our physical health. And if you can find a way to deal effectively with adversity, then it can go a long way towards helping all of us with our mental health. Okay, so I'd like to welcome Joe, who is tuned in from North America, and Lee, the same thing as well. Good afternoon and evening to both of you respectively. Thanks very much for tuning in. I'm going to talk about three stories that I've personally been through, and I'm hoping to convince you that adversity can be something that you can convert to an opportunity, depending on how you A, view adversity, and B, how you handle it. And the first story really starts back in the late 1980s. I was quite a young person at the time, and had gone to a junior college for a couple of years and was ready to go to the big university. My parents had saved up the money, and I was in. So I got in the car, I drove up, and to just cut straight to the chase, I checked into my dorm room. I registered for all the classes. I was up there early, and the first night there, something in my stomach just started churning. All of a sudden, I had major stress. I'd never lived away from home before. And suddenly I was on my own. Granted, it was a university, but at that point in time, that was a pretty big deal and a pretty stressful event for me to actually go through. And I think that that my mental health on that particular weekend, my first weekend there, it had deteriorated and sunk to an all-time low. So Monday morning came around. I went to class, absolutely hated my professors. Every word they said in my mind, through my eyes, was wrong. I just couldn't deal with it. The food was awful. Everything about it, this adverse situation that I didn't design, that I found myself was in, I just couldn't take it. So after about 10 days, I dropped out of university, went back home. We blew a bunch of money. And basically, for the next 9 months, I had a lot of time of doing nothing. My dreams of getting a university degree were completely shattered. Now, we've all been through more devastating things. I'm actually choosing this one to tell you first that it was at that point in my life completely devastating because my dreams were shattered. So for the next 9 months, I started to realize, and somebody told me, gave me some great advice. That said, Brett, the problem here is not the professor, is not the food, is not the color of the dormitory windows. It's your attitude. Is that you're blaming everybody else for something that they didn't do just because you see it wrong. Okay. So basically, fast forward 9 months, I did embrace that advice, and fast forward 2.5 more years, I went to a different university, got my degree with honors, and I was really a proud person coming out of that, because I no longer, and even to this day, if something happens adversely to me and I find myself in the situation, I do not blame others. And that was many, many, many years ago, right? So that's what, 4 decades ago or so. And I have not one time blamed the other people, anybody else, for something that has not gone my way. Okay. So the lesson of this story was, don't blame others when you're in an adverse situation. Now, second story came within 6 months of me obtaining that degree. Again, young person, gullible. I started applying for banks in Dallas, Texas, and basically had 24 no's, 24 declines. Okay, now, I was saying to myself, I went through all this trouble. I got a degree for what? And I wasn't blaming anybody else. I wasn't blaming these 24 companies for declining my application, but I started blaming myself, saying, why did I even, go to the trouble for, 5 years or so, going to university, getting the degree? Why did I even do that? Right. And I started questioning not others, but myself. Okay. And my father told me at one point, he said, Brett, what, all it takes is one yes. So just keep going. The light bulb went on, and that's all I needed to hear. And guess what? On the 25th application, I got that yes. And the rest is history. Okay. Many of you watching this would know me, and 19-year international career with Citigroup, Citi. Okay. Had different name changes. So, the lesson number 2 of adversity, again, that fortunately I learned early on, is if you find yourself in an adverse situation, don't blame yourself. So in the 1980s, fortunately for me, very young, I learned, and to this day, don't blame myself when something goes wrong. Don't blame others. Don't blame myself. Let's fast forward to 1998. And then I'm going to fast forward to the mid 2000s. 1998, Asian financial crisis. My first assignment overseas in Singapore, off the back of the what started as the Thailand currency crisis, and it had a domino effect on many parts of Asia, a big chunk of Asia. And fast forward to the mid 2000s, you could call it whatever you want, the global financial crisis, the credit bubble, whatever you want to call it. I was in London at the time, and basically the concept here, what we did in both companies that I worked for, and I'll just talk about the second one, Barclays, because that was really impactful, because millions of customers literally were counting on the leadership and tens of thousands or thousands of employees to actually help guide them through the financial crisis. And we did it. And do you know how we did it? We did it because we had shaped a culture that was client-centric and employee-centric. So when the crisis hit, everybody knew. We didn't have to have a big meeting because we were already having meetings. Everybody knew to get close and stay close to clients. So we went on a mission. We called a couple million customers over that period of time, and our people knew to pick up that phone and just let the client know that we were there for them. Okay. The lesson here is that in a crisis or during adversity, choppy market conditions, whatever happens, don't panic, and understand that the problem is limited in scope and duration, and it can be dealt with. So when the Asian crisis hit, when the global financial crisis hit, we knew what to do, and we knew we could deal with it. Therefore, the third lesson. So in summary, my recommendation is to do what Bruce Lee talked about. Now, Bruce Lee, many of you might know, you can read about him, but he had he was just a brilliant person. And he had a very famous saying that said, "Be like water, my friend." And what he means by this is empty your mind, be formless and shapeless like water. Okay. Now, water, if you pour water into a cup, it becomes a cup. Okay. You pour this water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. And Bruce Lee said, you pour the water into a teapot and it becomes the teapot. The point here is to be flexible in body and mind. Don't be so stubborn and rigid. You need to sometimes adjust to the conditions that are around you. So be open-minded, be able to adapt to the circumstances. This is why culture is so important in your business or firm that you're working to lead. Okay. There's no need to panic. If you can be like water, you can adjust to whatever situation in the environment that you're currently in. Okay. So be flexible that way as well. And heed the great advice of Bruce Lee, be like water, my friend. You can look it up if you'd like. Okay. Now, let me get to the, I told you the 3 stories about me, and let me briefly introduce a concept. All of us have heard a lot about IQ and EQ. Okay. I'm not going to talk about those today. They're both very important. Namely, EQ is very important. Okay. Empathy. I'm a big believer in embracing EQ. But today I'm talking about adversity and something called the adversity quotient. Okay. Many people, it's surprising, have not heard about the adversity quotient. And basically, in a nutshell, it talks about, or the concept is that if you have a low AQ, you're like I was in the first 2 stories that I told, where you're helpless, you feel guilty, you're blaming others, you're blaming yourself. The problems are stacking up beyond belief, and you just don't see an end to the adversity. Okay. Now, if on the other hand, if you have a high AQ, okay, look at the drivers for a high AQ. The 3 things that I spoke about. One is, so these are the 3 steps to dealing with adversity. And if you do these 3 things, and this is the main point of today, you'll convert adversity into an opportunity. Number 1, don't blame others for the situation. Number 2, don't blame yourself for the situation. So that blame just needs to go out because it doesn't solve anything. And number 3, understand that what you're dealing with, this adversity, is limited in scope and duration, and you can deal with it. So embrace these 3 concepts and get aggressive when adversity hits. Play offense. You don't need to defend. You can have your values, but and hold firm to those. Never compromise your integrity or your values. But with how you handle situations, you need to be like water. Be flexible. Okay. Adjust to the situation. Don't compromise what's important. But most importantly, don't blame yourself, others. Understand that what you're dealing with can't deal with. It's not going to last forever, and it won't end the universe as we know it. Okay, so that's a very important part as well. So with that, those are the my tips for viewing adversity and dealing with it. And basically, I want to now recognize. Let's see, Joe's on. Lee is here. Nuri, welcome aboard. It's great to have you all here as well. And if anybody has, and I appreciate the comments here as well, that Lee talked about that mental health is more important than physical health. I completely agree with that. And attitude and gratitude are big keys to having a meaningful and happy life. Lee, I completely agree with that. Gratitude will completely paralyze fear. So if you're ever fearful about something, gratitude is a great stabilizer. You can stabilize the situation and just keep going about what you're doing as well. Joe, I know every day Joe Gonzalez, who's participating in this live, is in the gym every morning giving tips to this community on life and how to be the very best we can be and how to live our best life. It's very inspirational. If you're not awake at 3 a.m. in North America, you can certainly tune in. But for those of you in Asia, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't look at Joe Gonzalez's feed, tune in and hear what he's got to say every day as well. Because if you follow that, Joe never blames other people or himself for a situation, and he's always suggesting ways to deal with the problem. So don't let adversity ever get in your way again. Okay, heed this advice because it works. It's worked for me for 40 years. Okay, by not blaming others, not blaming myself, and understanding that you can deal with the issue, right? This community is very smart and brilliant, okay? And so you can figure out how to deal with these problems, but sometimes human nature tends to pull us in a different direction. Our emotions may come into play, or the parts of the EQ may come into play, but remember AQ, adversity quotient. And I'd like for all of you to talk to 5 people this week about AQ. Okay. And my bet is most of the people may not have heard of AQ, or more importantly, it doesn't really matter what it is, but how do you improve your AQ? These 3 steps: don't blame yourself, don't blame others, and deal with the problem. You do these things, and basically your AQ will go through the roof. And when adversity strikes and most people are impacted, okay, don't worry about most people. Take care of yourself, and then you can help the other people. But if you don't take care of yourself and deal with the adversity, it becomes very difficult, and in many cases, impossible to help other people. Okay. I'm on this platform to help other people, but I know that if I get down with an adverse situation, that I can't help anybody. Okay. So please heed this advice. Get your own mind in order when adversity hits. You can deal with it. You're smart enough to do that. And then you can help others. And what I'm asking you to do this week is to let 5 people that you know about AQ, the adversity quotient, and the 3 simple steps to help them through any adverse situation. This will go so far towards helping so many people with mental health. And the real kicker would be that if those 5 people, you ask them to speak with 5 people, then we've just spread this word, okay, to quite a large number of people, okay, because ultimately there will be a lot of people that see this concept, okay, in the feed over the next couple of days. So tell 5 people, encourage them to tell 5 more people, different people, about the adversity quotient and how to drive it up. And this simple action will go a long ways towards helping so many with their mental health. Okay. So Joe says the mind is powerful. Use it to your advantage, right? So everything starts from within. So if we can control our mind, because that's where it is, it's inside of us. So don't let these external factors, influence us. Your mind can actually control the environment around you if you view it that way. So inside out, not outside in. So many people look in the mirror. Okay. There's an expression, unfortunately, that talks about look at yourself in the mirror, but looking from the outside, it's what you see through your eyes, the inside out. Okay. If you see the world that way, okay, you'll strengthen your self-image and you'll be able to deal with any adverse situation that life deals you. So inside out is always the key. So without further ado, I think that that pretty much covers the subject for today. I appreciate all of you tuning in, And please, I know many of you will see this on the replay, so please let me know if you'd like to go any deeper on this particular subject, and I'll pop on another live and help you. But in the meantime, thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll look forward to seeing all of you again here on the airwaves quite soon. Thanks very much. Have a terrific